Brynn Bishop, and I'm a conscious intimacy coach and Tantra educator. I help individuals and couples come into a deeper sense of themselves, connect on a deeper level with themselves and therefore with each other. So I'm trained in a couple different schools of body-oriented psychotherapy and trauma work, as well as energy medicine, Qigong and Tantra, and working with the internal energies. What's fascinating that I've found in my journey, because I was drawn to study these various things on my own path of healing and awakening, and that what I've discovered is that they blend together incredibly well. They really support each other. From a psychological perspective, when our basic needs aren't met, particularly early on at critical age, then we have to find some kind of coping mechanism, and we develop a strategy. We test out different responses to see what's going to help us get our needs met, and then we keep doing that, and that forms our character. And if there's trauma, which doesn't necessarily have to be abuse, but it could be, just psychological trauma of not having someone be there for us when we were young and comfort us and let us know that we're safe, then that kind of gets encapsulated. And on the emotions of that time, the sensory perceptions and the beliefs that we form about ourselves and the world all get encapsulated, and they get stored in our body tissue, in our cellular memory. So when we're working one of these things out to clear it and shift it so that it no longer activates us. In other words, if I have a wounding around feeling like I'm not safe, no one is actually going to be there for me, to have the experience of someone really being there and really meeting me and really holding me and accepting like my grief, my sadness, my anger, my rage, whatever might be encompassed in that, can help release it and transform it so that it no longer, when I'm in a similar situation where I'm feeling fragile, I'm feeling tender and raw and really wanting someone to be there for me, whether it's my partner or a friend, and they're not, then I won't crumble to that place. I'll have more internal resource but I know the experience of what it is to be held, and I can hold myself better and come back to center. And when we're working with Tantra, we're working with energy, and what happens is we start moving the energy, it comes up against the energy blocks, because we have the physical body and the emotional body and the mental body and the energetic body. And so these things get stored on different levels, and they clear on different levels. And sometimes what's amazing with the Tantra is that you can start moving the energy, and I do a technique that I call somatic soul alignment, where I read the energy in someone's body and I can feel where the blocks are, and it may correspond to different chakra centers which have their own psychology. And by bringing attention and presence and bringing their conscious awareness to that place, and bringing awareness and bringing energy and intention, we can actually start to move it. And sometimes it's a matter of shifting the structure that can then open up the space for the energy to flow through. And there can be things that release, traumas that release, or woundings that release, that the person has no idea what it is, and they don't have to go through years of psychotherapy processing why did this happen and where it start and where did it come from? It just flows, because what happens is if we have an emotion, say sadness and grief, and it's not safe to express it when it comes up, we put the lid on it and then it gets stuck in us. And our nervous system gets stuck in fight, flight, or freeze. If we can't fight or flee, then we get stuck in freeze. And when we start moving the energy and it hits up against these frozen energies, they can just release and move through, because emotion is energy. It comes like waves. When we have big emotions, whether it's anger or sadness or whatever it may be, it comes in a wave, and if we're in a safe place to allow it to move through us and express safely, then it dissipates and it's gone. If you see young children move through, getting hurt and crying and getting angry and throwing something, and then they get a hug and then they're all happy and they go play again. It just moves through. It doesn't get stuck. We don't end up with trauma. And you see this with animals in the wild too. If they're in a life-threatening situation, there's a predator and they freeze, say a rabbit, and there's a fox, and they go into freeze and they're camouflage and the fox leaves, then that rabbit comes out of that freeze and has all this energy. It'll shake that energy off and it'll pounce with like joy and aliveness. And that's what happens when we move through and allow that energy to, not only the energy that's trapped in the freeze, but also the energy that it takes to hold it down. When that starts to open up and release, we have this wellspring of energy and this natural joy and aliveness that surfaces. So let's start with the heart center. Sometimes it's easier to think of like a pet that you love, or someone that you feel that loving bond with, whether it's a parent or a child or a dear friend or a partner, someone that you feel trust and safe and connected and loved. And you can call to mind their face, their eyes, their presence, and bring in that feeling of being loved and of loving them, and feel that energy of love. And then bring that energy. The palms of our hands are connected to our heart center, so we can really actually bring that energy of love back to our own hearts. And this is such an important practice, to bring that energy to ourselves, to the parts of ourselves that are hurt, that are feeling isolated, that are feeling cut off, disconnected, and to soothe those parts with this loving kindness and gentleness. And you can make the sound ah, which is the Taoist universal healing sound of the heart, both with movement and sound, and it doesn't have to sound pretty. And this is a place to give yourself permission to not be the good girl or the good boy, to really let out that raw energy. Now, you're not going to direct it at someone, so it's safe. It's just letting that energy move through, so you can really connect with your power center, because anger it has a very important purpose, and that is to warn us, to let us know that our boundaries have been crossed. And it may be that someone else impinged upon us in a way that wasn't okay with us, and it may be that we said okay to something that wasn't okay for us. Either way, it's this learning process, sometimes we don't know what's too much until we're there, and then we go, okay, that's too much, and I can change now, and this is what I need, and no more. And I'm going to practice on my own. Ha! 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 So you can feel your power in your body, and this is where I stop and you stop. Yeah, this is me and that's you, and this is the boundary between us. And sometimes that's really important.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
All right.